Taiwan's cabinet has announced over a dozen leadership changes after failed lawmaker recalls. Even before a final US tariff deal, car dealers in Taiwan are feeling the impact as buyers hit the brakes. China's upcoming parade, marking the end of World War II, has sparked debates within Taiwan about its former role as part of the Japanese Empire.
抗战胜利才有台湾光复，所以这和中华民国，也包括我们今天在台湾，当然都有重大关系。
Plus,
here in Kinmen, we take a look at a network of underground tunnels that are remnants of battles with China.
a warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Laurel Stewart. Taiwan's cabinet has announced a reshuffle involving 16 officials. It comes as the public grows increasingly unhappy with the ruling party over the mass lawmaker recall movement and its ongoing tariff negotiations with the US. Our reporter Tiffany Wong has been following this story and joins us live from our newsroom with the latest. Tiffany, who is in the new cabinet?
Hi, Laurel. Well, this is the first cabinet shakeup that we are seeing since President Lai Ching-te took office just over a year ago. Premier Zhou Rongcai will stay on, but we are getting new heads for the economy, health, and digital affairs ministries, as well as a new head for the National Development Council. Also announced is the very first head of the sports ministry. That will be Li Yang, a two-time Olympic badminton gold medalist. Now, before the reshuffle was announced, there was a lot of speculation that this would happen. Already 2 ministers had resigned, citing health concerns. But this shakeup also comes off the back of those mass recall elections, as you mentioned, against dozens of opposition lawmakers over the past year. And those were initiated by the public, but widely supported by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, who have been seeking more spots in the legislature. Now, all of those recall attempts failed, and the opposition Kuomintang has been calling on the cabinet to replace its personnel, calling for mass resignations and accusing it of failing to communicate between the two parties in the government. And they've also criticized the cabinet for its tariff negotiations with the U.S., especially as Taiwan had a higher tariff rate than its neighboring countries like Japan and South Korea.
So what has the response been to this shakeup?
Well, Kuomintang Chair Eric Zhu said that he's disappointed with this new cabinet. He says that Zhou got rid of a lot of political independence in the cabinet, but kept a lot of DPP heavyweights. Now, despite this criticism, Zhou says that he is confident in this new lineup and that he's looking forward to working with this new team to boost national development and the national economy. And he's expected to formally introduce them to the public at a conference on Thursday.
Thank you, Tiffany. That was our reporter Tiffany Wong live in our newsroom. Taipei could start allowing tax-free American vehicles into the country as part of its tariff negotiations with Washington. But as IT reports, some people are holding off buying cars in the hopes of cheaper ones from the US, and it's already hitting the local car market.
Thousands of imported vehicles are filling up the port of Taipei, expanding a sea of vehicles. The cause, uncertainty surrounding US tariffs, as Washington hopes Taipei would remove all tariffs on fully assembled vehicles. This had led local consumers to adopt a wait-and-see attitude toward car purchases, already taking its toll on the auto market.
我想现在从台北的巴黎港到台中港，已经塞满了数万辆的新车哈，任何一个车商都会受不了。2026的车会出来，那2025的车还没开始卖，当然2025的车到明年一定会更下修价格来出清。
When buying foreign vehicles in Taiwan, import duties, commodity taxes, and value-added taxes are added to the base price. But if Taiwan opens its market and implements zero tariffs on fully assembled US vehicles, prices for a mid-sized car could drop by around $15,000. This has customers putting off the purchases, hurting local sales.
越早讲越不会让我们市场产生这种焦虑，产生这种向后延迟消费的情况，对于这种销售上面造成一个非常大的障碍。那对于从业人员来讲会非常的痛苦。
It's not just the tariff talks. The preferential commodity tax for replacing old vehicles could be cut further, also weighing down the local market as potential buyers hold out for even lower prices.
很多人可能会觉得说，哎，这个进口车跟国产车的价钱差不了太多，国内消费者一直在等待，所以光一个货物税的调降我认为还不足以刺激买气。
Industry analysts suggest it would be better to lower the commodity tax on both imported and domestic cars at the same time to reduce the impact from potentially tariff-free U.S. vehicles. They say this would help maintain the competitiveness of domestically produced cars and protect local manufacturing jobs. Scott Huan, NIT for TaiwanPlus.
Companies in Taiwan and 9 other countries could face new duties aimed at protecting US steel producers. The US Commerce Department ruled that these countries dumped or subsidized corrosion-resistant steel exported to the United States. Some Taiwanese companies could now face nearly 11% in anti-dumping duties, on top of existing 50% tariffs on steel. The ruling could affect nearly $3 billion worth of imports into the US. Corrosion-resistant steel, also known as core steel, is used in cars, appliances, construction materials, and other products. Both the Wall Street Journal and Reuters are reporting that the US and Russia are discussing energy deals alongside peace talks for the Ukraine war. These deals include ExxonMobil returning to a massive Russian oil project and Russia buying US equipment for liquid natural gas operations. According to both news outlets, those possibilities were proposed as incentives for Moscow to agree to stop the war. Russia has been cut off from most international investment since 2022 due to sanctions following its invasion of Ukraine. China is preparing to hold a military parade marking 80 years since the end of its war with Japan, and it's showing off its latest weapons. While Taiwan is distancing itself from the event and calling for an international boycott, the parade is sparking discussion over its government's role in Japan's defeat. John Van Trieste reports.
In a week, Beijing will host a military parade marking 80 years since Japan's formal surrender in World War II and eventual withdrawal from China. The event is raising concerns in Taiwan, and not just because of the military might of a threatening neighbor on display. China claims Taiwan and says it won't rule out using force to take it. But Taiwan sees itself as sovereign, using the official name the Republic of China, or ROC. And Taipei is determined to make sure next week's parade doesn't become a tool for eroding that sovereignty.
尤其是在93阅兵，要维护国家的主权尊严跟整体利益，不要去呼应他们矮化台湾、伤害中华民国的相关言论。
Anyone in government is banned from attending, as are former national security personnel and anyone who's held a military rank of major general or higher. Taiwanese entertainers active in China are on notice too. The government is investigating and punishing 20 of them who've made statements seen as supportive of Beijing. Concerns about the parade aren't just about Taiwan's future. The past is at stake too. Beijing is expected to present the victory over Japan as a Communist Party triumph. But during conflict, most of the fighting was carried out by the ROC's nationalist forces, the same government that later fled to Taiwan. Communist guerrillas did fight in the north, but it was the ROC that bore the brunt of the war and suffered massive losses.
这个整个抗战8年的时间，甚至于延伸到过去，我想我们全国牺牲的将士官兵这个超过300万人，一般的民众超过2000万人。 其中也包括了一些我们外交界的前辈，用血泪交织而成所换来的。
Some even say Taiwan needs its own events to counter the idea this was a purely communist victory.
抗战胜利才有台湾光复，所以这和中华民国也包括我们今天在台湾，当然都有重大关系。我看到现在的政府执政党对这个东西不表示态度，然后也不愿意办任何纪念活动，我当然感到非常遗憾。
Japan has reportedly already urged countries not to send representatives to next week's parade, prompting a protest from China, who called for the country to cut ties with its militarist past. And now, for its own reasons, Taiwan too is calling on democratic countries to boycott the event. But while the country is doing its best to distance itself from the parade, discussion about what it's commemorating and what it means for Taiwan is lively. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Officials and lawmakers from around the world have gathered for a gala in Taipei to show support for Taiwan. Alan Liu reports on how the event on Tuesday night is giving the politically isolated country a rare moment of reassurance from friends and allies abroad.
Organizers say a gala event in Taipei is highlighting global solidarity with Taiwan amid growing uncertainty and threats from China. The Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC Gala, hosted officials from the UK, Poland, Japan, and Sweden, as well as local officials including Vice President Bi Kim-hsiao.
Recently, I hear many people saying to us that it's not easy being Taiwanese. In fact, it's very hard. We are bullied, coerced, threatened, marginalized, and isolated in the international community. But that does not deter us, and neither has it impacted our pursuit of freedom and democracy.
IPAC works to promote international cooperation in responding to China's actions. It seeks to protect human rights, uphold sovereignty, and maintain regional peace.
We need some accountability for clear violations of the status quo. It isn't good enough for governments and for other people to say, we oppose any unilateral change in the status quo, when clearly the status quo has been routinely violated. We need to be looking towards accountability for those violations and pushing back against grey zone activity.
China considers Taiwan part of its territory and has threatened to use force to seize the country. Events like this gala highlights international recognition of Taiwan's importance amid rising security concerns in the Indo-Pacific, showing that while diplomatically isolated, Taiwan is not truly alone. Devon Tai, Leon Lian, Isabel Wang, and Ellen Liu for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, infectious diseases and toxic rubble are complicating storm cleanup efforts. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Kevin. Welcome to Whirlwind Trip. Let us take you on an amazing journey through the heart and soul of Taiwan's vibrant cities. Discover a new city in each episode with an exhilarating journey full of culture, discovery, and unforgettable moments. Stay tuned for more Whirlwind Trips in Taiwan.
Every Monday, 8:15 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Local communities are still cleaning up after 3 back-to-back storms brought flooding and strong winds to southern Taiwan 2 weeks ago. As Irene Lin reports, locals now face threats from diseases and toxic debris as they try to rebuild their lives.
Stagnant floodwater and scattered debris left by the 3 storms since early July not only halted people's daily lives, but are also endangering their health. Over the past week, 9 people have reportedly contracted melioidosis, a serious bacterial infection, and 1 has died from subsequent complications.
这个个案他其实他脚部有伤口，那不过他在这个台风期间呢是没有出门的，而且这个他家的这个附近其实也没有发生水患。不过他个人他到底有没有接触到污水污泥是没有办法确认。
The high summer heat combined with polluted floodwaters have also led to cases of leptospirosis and dengue fever. In buildings whose roofs were damaged by the typhoon, residents are still working to rebuild by first breaking them down into smaller pieces. But what seems like a normal practice could lead to health problems, even cancer. These old tiles, common in countries like Japan and Taiwan, is made of asbestos.
因为石棉管它是有毒的，非常具有毒性。照理讲，灾民都不应该去拆除它， 你不能随便请工人去拆除。
But there's no time for these residents to wait for professional help. Many have put on gloves and got to work.
在把剩下的石棉瓦拆掉的时候，我们看到的是都没有防护，然后就是也很多都是直接用暴力敲击的方式，然后那个粉尘是直接这样子散落。
Taiwan has restricted all asbestos use as of 2018, but many houses built with this material still stand to this day. Doctors say extra steps are needed to regulate asbestos pollution.
在这方面，我会觉得说，要有一个应变的计划，然后这个应变的计划也就会延续到说，我们在做这些拆除的时候，空气中石棉有多少的量，这事实上是可以监测的啦。
The Environment Ministry says it has warned local officials and residents about the health risks of asbestos tiles, and it is allocating $45 million to help locals remove them as part of its disaster relief budget. Whether it's dealing with disaster or toxic waste, Taiwan still has a long way to go to overcome the impacts of these storms. Ryan Wu and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
Human rights groups are urging Taiwan's government not to repatriate Burmese people to Myanmar, which is run by a military junta. The Taiwan Association for Human Rights, local organizations and Burmese groups endorsed a letter to the National Immigration Agency. They warned that since the junta ended the state of emergency in July, the Immigration Agency and the Foreign Ministry are now assessing whether the country is safe for overseas Burmese to return. This review could affect the status of Burmese nationals in Taiwan, especially those who've been granted extensions. Taiwan does not have asylum laws, but does provide avenues for refugees on a case-by-case basis. The Immigration Agency says it offers assistance for Burmese to extend their stays in Taiwan and does not forcibly deport people thought to be at risk. To learn more about Burmese nationals' status in Taiwan, our reporter Tiffany Wong spoke with Liao Xieni, migration and asylum policy researcher at Taiwan Association for Human Rights.
How have the risks increased for Burmese nationals living in Taiwan to be deported back to Myanmar right now?
Because of the junta's announcement of ending the emergency status in, I think, the 31st of July, the Immigration Agency and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is conducting an investigation collectively to reassess the situation in Myanmar. If they came to the conclusion that the situation has been improved, they will give out more general orders from the officers saying that the practice of extending on humanitarian concerns should not be a general rule, and they should proceed with the repatriation of those who has been staying in Taiwan because of those previous extensions.
So right now there are about 4,000 Burmese nationals living in Taiwan, and most of them are students. What risks do students face when they go back to Myanmar?
The three main dangers that faces that some came from regions that armed conflicts that has been particularly high, even compared to other regions. So that we have a lot of asylum seekers from Saigon, from Rakhine State, or Shan State, Chin State, which is the focus of the junta's airstrikes. So this is part of the this is one of the main dangers. Another is that there are also people who have engaged in political activities very actively, and then because of their activities, some of them have already been issued a court order, and there are also who has been staying under the student visa in Taiwan when the coup happened, but they have been participating in solidarity events in Taiwan, like the assemblies and also posting those informations online.
So the Immigration Agency handles these asylum cases and visa extensions on a case-by-case basis. How exactly do they assess the risk that somebody might face back in Myanmar?
If they submit some sort of evidence or just like a news report of what their hometown has been put under, the immigration will accept for consideration their pleas, and they'll extend their visas or postpone their deportation. But now they are like reassessing both the ones that have been cleaned for like humanitarian consideration and also for like ongoing for like future cases the immigration agency will probably will be adopting a stricter review of those. I just want to add to that the immigration agency will usually give out statements saying that for those that they have determined that will be as risk of arbitrary deprivation of life subject to torture if returned. When they say that they have never been deported anyone who has been identified as such, that should be taken in consideration that they have never explicitly acknowledged anyone or explicitly identify anyone as such.
That was Liao Xinyi from the Taiwan Association for Human Rights. This past weekend marked the 67th anniversary of the Second Taiwan Strait Crisis, a period of heavy shelling on Taiwan's outlying Kinmen Islands. Our reporter Cadence Caranta went to Kinmen to take a closer look at the underground tunnels from that time that still exist today.
这个是我们家当初在那个单打双不打时候的防空洞。
This is where Li Youzhong remembers hiding from Chinese artillery shells every other night for many years.
头小心一点哦。他以前大概小时候就这边单号的时候，就可能上面铺个垫子，然后在那边坐着。可能如果释放他，可能就简单吃一吃，在那边等到时间过了再上去这样子。
Li lives on Taiwan's outlying Kinmen Islands, just a few kilometers from China. After the nationalist government fled to Taiwan from China in 1949 as they were losing to the communists in the Chinese Civil War, these islands became the front line between the two sides. China tried to invade the islands but failed and subjected them to periods of heavy shelling. In 1958, during what's known as the Second Taiwan Strait Crisis, China fired over 450,000 shells at Kinmen in just 44 days. After that crisis eased, China said it would continue shelling Kinmen, but only on odd-numbered days of the week, with shells containing propaganda leaflets. That routine shelling lasted for around 20 years, meaning residents of Kinmen learned to live their lives constantly on edge and often underground. Many Kinmen homes had shelters like Li's. For much of his childhood, on odd days, Li's family would go down in the evenings when the shells normally came. It was a way to survive, and it became somewhat of a routine.
基本上我们在单号晚上的话，大部分的人基本上可能那天都会提早一点吃饭，就是说时间到了总要躲到防空洞，在里面自己玩啊，可能拿一点玩具或是拿一个课本在里面，反正时间一段时间，听到没有炮声的话就出来。
But sometimes, he remembers, shells would hit outside of that time frame, catching people off guard, injuring some and even killing others. Li remembers going to school one day to find out a classmate's entire family had died. News like this began to feel normal.
我们生活当中常常有人受伤，有人死亡，变成是好像我们日常生活中应该有的事情。好像每个人在我们金门边长大的小孩子，可能有一天被炮弹打死，那是很正常的，没有觉得什么。
Kinmen, like the rest of Taiwan, was under martial law at the time, and as it prepared itself for a Chinese invasion, more underground infrastructure emerged. Long civil defense tunnels were dug underneath busy streets and small villages, like this one in Chongling Village, which residents dug by hand.
那时候就说，没有什么工具啊，没有什么机械工具啊，都是靠人力挖的啊。那个时候听说呢也是很紧急啊，你也线什么时候要做完了，没有做完不行啊，因为万一没有做完，敌人攻上来冒出来的话，糟糕，整个前功尽弃了。
But other than as a precaution, those civilian tunnels were never used because an invasion from China never came. In 1979, after China and the U.S. established formal diplomatic relations, the shelling finally stopped, but the tunnels under Kinmen still remain.
Nowadays, a lot of tunnels like this one in Kinmen that were originally built for war become tourist destinations or are open for more modern-day uses.
Several are now used to store Kinmen's signature gaoliang liquor, which is aged before being put on store shelves.
这是老厂的酒，这是从2019年一直放到现在。
Another old military tunnel hosts an annual music festival. And as these tunnels have moved on, in some ways, people here have too. After many years of being cut off from China, many here feel connected to it again. People have family and friends there, or do business or own property there.
It's easier to get to the Chinese city of Xiamen than it is to the main island of Taiwan, just around a 30-minute ferry ride, and many visit the city frequently.
陆陆续续之后，其实我们小滩通之后，金门跟厦门开始往来，就恢复到以前，就是跟厦门这边的一些关系，慢慢就恢复了，就没有像以前对于可能中国大陆有这么大的一个仇恨感，至少要放下一些东西的，以后的这些日子来过更好的生活，那才是比较重要的。
But what lingers here is the memory of the cruelty of war, and amid continued tensions across the strait, a strong desire to maintain peace.
心里就希望说不要战争，只要不要战争，什么都好啊。如果有战争哦，什么都没有了，什么都完蛋了啊。所以是和平最可贵的，战争很残忍的，希望大家不要有战争，和平相处。
People here who remember that time intimately know that it's regular people who pay the ultimate price for war. The stories of that time carried on by residents across these islands and in the world of shelters and tunnels underneath them. Alex Chen and Cadence Karanta in Kinmen for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we take you to Canada for the annual Taiwan Fest, where locals are trying hacker indigo dyeing and enjoying live performances. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care and see you next time.